Welcome to this training all on gym design and how to get the optimal setup specifically for the space that you have. I'm here with Ross at Indigo. Ross, thank you for coming down to the studio. Welcome to FMA HQ. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to come down and see you guys, and yeah, off the back of a very successful mastermind. So
awesome. I'm looking forward to diving into everything we're going to speak about. We've had a good conversation off camera, so I'm hoping we pull a lot of that into here because I think it'll be very interesting for the community to listen to. But before we do that, if you can just give me a bit of an intro about yourself, your background in the industry, and also Indigo Fitness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been in the industry or worked within fitness, elite sport, education sector for coming up 7 years now. It's gone quickly. My background personally, went to university, aspirations of being a sports scientist. Did that for a couple of years. Kind of realised working within a club wasn't necessarily for me. Always loved fitness, always loved working within sport, knew that was my passion. And then, fell into sort of gym design and then fell into the fitness industry. I mean, historically worked in elite sport in that sector, which, it is quite different to working in fitness, in the fitness sector, I guess, in terms of the gyms you're designing, the people you're dealing with. Started actively sort of designing and selling to the fitness industry probably about 5 years ago. At my previous company, and then I moved to Indigo Fitness approximately 2 years ago, just over, and that's really where, it's sort of taken off a little bit, mainly because of our capacity and our ability to create bigger and better things, and we're a very versatile company. We're a UK manufacturer, so everything is made in Britain, up in Nuneaton in Leicestershire, something we're very proud of. That gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of the bespoke and custom kit, which we'll come on to, I imagine, that we're able to create. But it also gives me as a gym designer the flexibility to go out there and create stuff that's different to anyone else, I believe, which happy to delve into.
Yeah, and there's a lot of equipment companies out there. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people, a lot of options for the consumer to pick from. What would you say is the main thing that sets Indigo apart from the other vendors? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think everyone has their USPs. I think as we were talking sort of about off camera there, I think that the biggest thing for me is the ability to do bespoke and custom work. Now, usually when the words of bespoke and custom are thrown around, straight away people think price point through the roof. And, we're not going to be the cheapest supplier out there, but when it comes to, a full turnkey solution, we probably will be. You're only really buying equipment that you need. And the bespoke and custom nature allows us just to maximise a room, maximise a training space. So rather than approach a room in the sense that, okay, so we've got a booklet, where can I put the racks, where can I put the kettlebells, where can I put the dumbbell rack? We'll look at it and go, actually, what would best fit in here? Would it be a rig? Would it be a rack? What is it the client wants to achieve? What classes are they putting on? What's their business model? Is it a membership base? Is it a one-to-one personal training model? Do they want to do a pod approach to the gym design? Do they want to do a zonal approach to the gym design? And what we can do is we can take that space, go, okay, they want racks in there, they want Smith machines, they want storage. Well, why don't we combine that? So why don't we put racks down the wall, take some traditional dead space that might be between the racks, for an example, and put some storage solutions in there, connect the racks so that they can put TRXs in there, integrate cables, as we talked about earlier on. It's our approach and our bespoke and custom ability just gives us that flexibility.
And so with that gym design process, are you guys quite hands-on? It sounds like you are based on what you just said, but if I come to you, I'm sure that I've got a vision, but if this is, let's say it's my first time opening up a gym, or maybe it's not my first time, maybe I had 1,000 square foot space and now I'm moving to double the capacity or 3 times the capacity or even more. It's going to be a different task to design a larger space than it's a smaller space, or if I've never done this before, it's going to be a completely new task all in itself. So I will probably come to you with a vision of what I want, but also I might not know what is completely optimal for the space. So how 100%. Hands-on are you guys when it comes to that process? And do you take what I'm trying to achieve into account? Like, if I am a one-to-one, if I am a small group trainer or group provider or even larger than that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. So definitely dealt with clients on both of those spectrums in terms of had people come to me and gone, here's my space, go away and design me a concept. Now, that can be, as its pros and cons, it gives me the ability to go, look guys, this is my experience in the industry. Here's a design, and I'll talk you through step by step why I've done that design. On the flip side, it is quite nice when you've got an owner or a gym prospector who has a vision, knows what they want, maybe just wants a little bit of expertise in terms of the layout, in terms of potentially, like I said, the integration of kit. I think the first step with anyone is sitting down and understanding their business model. I think ultimately you need to understand, as I said before, is it a membership base? Is it the PT approach? That will then lead on to whether you're doing the pod design, whether you're doing a zonal approach. You need to understand the number one thing you'd always get asked when you go into a gym is, how many members can I get in here, right? And you just have to be realistic. I mean, I know there's a lot of calculations out there, but it's about sitting down and just being realistic and quite open and transparent with them and just going, look, this is how we can design it. This is how we'll maximize it. And ultimately, this is the amount of members you can expect to get in here. And if that doesn't fit in with their business model, you can, take it out, rejig it, maybe give yourself some more floor space, try and maximize it as best you can. I think
that's probably a thing that a lot of people have maybe made a mistake in the past and they haven't taken into consideration. How many people can I fit into this space when it's set up like this? And then what may happen is they may grow to a certain point, but because of just purely the layout of the space, not the space itself, they maybe cap themselves at a certain number. So is that something you guys help with? Also, so let's say it's like, I'm this model, I want to get to this many clients.
Yeah.
What's the best possible layout for this? And then you guys will make the design based around those metrics and those goals.
Exactly that, yeah, 100%. I think the number one issue or the number one error a lot of people make is filling a gym full of kit. I think the more floor space you've got, the more you can use sort of less equipment, if you like, the more people you can get in the space. I think that's just sort of pretty common knowledge. The starting process will be very much a fact-finding mission. So you'll meet the client, you'll go there, you obviously measure up the gym, you'll find out about their business model, you'll find out about what their aspirations are, what type of training they're doing as well, whether it's functional fitness, whether they're looking at more bodybuilding, whether they're looking at you're going to find out what type of training they've got to do, because that'll ultimately then dictate the equipment and stuff that you're going to put in there. It's a real fact-finding mission, but it has to be led by them, particularly if they've got a vision. I mean, ultimately, they can give you the vision. You can go away, design a facility. If they haven't, you can introduce them to concepts, and you can actually give them a bit of background. It'll often be a concept that you maybe have implemented before. Give them a bit of background onto what sort of revenue that could expect and what sort of model they can put out there. It's really just a fact-finding mission at the early stage, and then that will dictate what you put in.
And so something that I've taken from you guys, and this part is from what it says on your website, but also something that you said earlier is there's no one-size-fits-all approach. But also you said that we don't really care if our branding's on the equipment or not. So you guys are very heavy on that personalization side of things, and there's one with the space, but also with like the equipment and the vision. So it'd be cool to run through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's come with the evolution of Instagram a little bit. I think you might have seen at one trade show we've got LEDs in the back of some of our racks and stuff like that. But no, in all honesty, I think the whole brand, the gym brand, is something that someone should want to be associated with. Not necessarily the supplier. I think don't get me wrong, there are some suppliers out there, and some people who use us probably want to be associated with our brand, but ultimately I think it's more about putting their brand at the center of it. We're not too fussed about putting Indigo Fitness or Ray Strength everywhere. It's more a case of how can we display your brand. Something we would also always say is you can go over the top. Some people, you can blast your brand everywhere. Ultimately, people know where they're going to the gym, right? But it's about just the little touch points, I think, having it in the backs of racks and maybe on your dumbbells and on your plates, but you don't need it everywhere. But I think for us, it's about putting the client's brand first before ours. Ultimately, when I go to a gym, I want to be associated with that gym. You'll see people wearing their merchandise and their t-shirts and stuff, and it should all be synonymous, really.
And so I could walk into two different gyms, and let's say they roughly had the same equipment. It could all look completely different from an aesthetic point of view based on the customization that gym wants. So someone has a color branding association with a certain color scheme. Exactly. It could be based all around that, and then someone could be completely opposite. So essentially whatever the client actually wants, you guys can do from that personalization side of things?
100%. So if you take an example, so a really good point. If you take a gym that's wants to go down the whole sustainable or is quite holistic, and they're going for these lighter colors, these lights, the blues, the greens and whatnot, that's a really strong part of their brand. If you've gone in there and it's just black racks and gray and black flooring and stuff, well, it doesn't really speak synonymously with their brand and what they're trying to achieve, if that makes sense. It's not, pinned back to nature. On the flip side of that, if you've got a brand that maybe is quite edgy and they use black with sharp accent colors and stuff like that, you've got two gyms there. The racks are pretty much the same, but I'm telling you, if you've got like a light blue or a what colored rack over here with some lighter color equipment, and you've got some dark equipment with some shades of red, they're going to have a completely different feel, particularly in terms of how you want to train. I mean, it depends how much you believe in the whole red for anger and green for nature and that sort of training, but there's science in there. So it's ultimately firstly about their brand, but it's also about that environment that they want to create.
And go back to gym design quickly, because do you think there's many mistakes that some people make when designing their gym, or people in the industry make? It'd be cool to run through like what you see and what people should potentially avoid when looking to design a gym.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first one I touched on earlier on, first one is just trying to fill it full of equipment for the sake of it. I think for me, the less is more approach initially. You can add to it, but trying to get rid of equipment after you've got it is probably a little bit more of a headache for you. So I would start with a minimalist approach, certainly. I think if you look at some of the big name brand gyms out there in terms of the boutique sector, like your WIT Fitnesses, it's a less is more approach if you're looking at that functional fitness. I think other mistakes that people will make is, we talked about it a little bit earlier on, you can be associated with a brand for having maybe just their bars and plates. You don't need their racks, their rigs, their storage and stuff to be. So actually, if you want to create an association with a best-in-class brand, we talked about earlier on, you can actually do that, but still have equipment that's not going to cost you ridiculous amounts and actually is probably better from a solution perspective for you. So for me, it's about, and also, a big one for me, actually, I talked about it probably last year sometime, is people don't demand enough from their supplier. I think a lot of suppliers are getting away with quite average designs in the sense that they take a wall and it's racks and it's just, you need to demand more. If you look at like a rack, for example, now the amount of attachments and stuff you can get on there, so you don't need like a leg extension machine. When you've got a leg extension, you can bolt onto a rack, and can you integrate cables into it or integrate them onto the sides? So I think for me, it's just asking a bit more of a question and just really trying to demand a little bit more. Take a storage solution. Should it just be a storage solution, or can we make that into a solution actually you can use it for pull-ups and maybe grapplers and landmines? And just always demand a little bit more is probably what I would say.
Essentially, every gym owner, if it's a small group training environment or just a small facility, has finite space, and how can you squeeze the most out of every square meter of space or square foot of space you have?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Particularly in London, probably is a good example where space is an absolute premium. I'm sure there's other sort of spaces as well where the cost per square foot is extortionate. It's honestly about doing that and looking at stuff like structural columns and structural pillars and whatnot as an opportunity, not a barrier. Again, you work with some suppliers and stuff who will be able to do bespoke work like we can, bespoke work around columns and maximising that for you. So it's almost being more optimistic when you come into the gym design and just not having a ceiling really.
I enjoyed your viewpoints on cable machines attached to the rack, so I'm going to bring it into the recorded version. So just for context, we were speaking off camera and I asked about the cable machine attached to the rack, and because it's quite a popular thing and it's quite a big conversation at the moment, and Absolutely. You have maybe slightly opposing views to that, so it'd be cool to kind of get your take on it. But also I think what you said just then is like, how can you maximize the space that isn't necessarily being used, like pillars and elements like that? So it'd be good to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, the cable chat. It's just something we've been talking about. Yeah, we've been talking about internally quite a lot. And I think first and foremost, to maximize space, ultimately integrating two products into one is an absolute no-brainer. I think that's where a lot of people go. So the sticking point that we have, or our question back to it, if you like, is, if you have your cables integrated into your racks, you can't really use them together, right? So you're either really using it as a cable machine or a rack. Now, for a home gym setup, that's fantastic. You're likely only going to be training on your own or with one other person, so that works perfectly. In a commercial setting, you're then having to make the decision of whether I'm using that as a rack, but I'm stopping people using it as a cable machine, or vice versa. So we would argue that it doesn't bring too much value there. Ultimately in terms of like, especially trying to get a big membership base in there and you need as many usable and workable stations as possible. So we would prefer to build cables on the side. Now I know there's space and limiting factors to that, or back to back, which you're seeing really popular at the moment. So rack on the front, cable on the back, really popular. Because that ultimately means you've got 2 workable stations. So that's how we would approach that topic.
So it's not about not having a cable machine, but it's like, where can you put it where you can use that simultaneously to another main piece of equipment, essentially?
Exactly that. And I think, as we talked about earlier on, a cable machine traditionally is this big chunky thing with a pull-up bar and stuff on it. I mean, there are some really cool, slick designs, not just from us, from other people, in terms of cable stacks that are out there that are flush to the wall. And we talked about some of the technologies like the Anchor, which is a pulley system, which is portable. So think about what you want to use the cable machine for. Can you get away with getting that stimulus with a piece of kit that's maybe perhaps a little bit less a footprint? Is that footprint better spent on a leg press, on another bit of kit that you can't necessarily use with another product, if you like? I think it's so diverse now that you don't necessarily have to have these big chunky cable machines. Also, can you integrate them? So if it's got a cable machine, can it be integrated onto the side of a rack? Can the back of the cable machine have storage? Can it have pull-up bars? Can it have grapplers? Again, demanding more. It's not just a cable machine anymore that's just a simple pulley. Can it be a bit more?
And so you guys, obviously you do a wide range of equipment, pretty much anything you need you guys will do, from the main equipment all the way down to the accessories. But that's not all you do. There's a big focus on the technology side. So it sounds like from the equipment technology, you really focus on that experience the moment someone walks through the door. How come you guys do or have the technology as well as the equipment rather than just one or the other? And does it complement each one, knowing that you have it all in under the same roof?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. In terms of building an environment, it's not just about, what we often say is gym equipment is gym equipment, right? It's steel. Yes, you can brand it and you can make it look nice, but ultimately, a lot of the best case studies or a lot of the best gyms you'll see, it looks amazing because of the aesthetics of the actual room. That might be the LEDs, that might be the mirrors, that might be the underfloor lights, whatever that might be. It's about creating that environment. And that's something that we believe strongly in as well. So when we're designing, we can advise on the lighting, we can advise on different colour schemes and whatnot to create an environment that's synonymous with the brand, synonymous with the training concept they're trying to create. We also go slightly differently in terms of, we're quite sports science focused in terms of some of the products that we'll bring in. So as well as your lights and whatever else, we're actually trying to integrate technology quite actively. You would have seen that at the trade shows and see it at future events as well, where we're putting camera systems, VBT, velocity-based training systems, we're putting force platform systems, lots of different sports science tech, because I generally do believe that the weightlifting or the weight area is the next one to be digitalized. There's companies out there doing it now. Don't know if we're fully there yet, but if you look at cardio machines and where they've developed in the last 5 years, from press a button to Netflix and YouTube on the screen, and now we're looking at the weights area, which is going to be all interactive at some point.
And is that what you see in terms of innovation within equipment? So more digitalization within every single piece of machinery that you see?
100%. So
and how will that work for the client if you were to run through that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you saw it, to start on sort of where it's come from in its journey. I think you saw it first, as I said, in the cardio machines. I think you then saw it in the pin loaded kit. Now they have screens and you can adjust the seats automatically, and it's really going, and it's individual to your profile, right? So you come in and it takes your previous week's average of what you're lifting, and you want to develop power, so it does a force velocity curve and it goes, right, this is the weight you need it on to develop power. That's where the resistance kit's at the moment. Well, the weights room is just waiting for that sort of thing to happen. And in elite sport, this has been happening. They're using velocity-based training as a tool, as a concept. They're using force platforms. They're using camera systems.
And so you think that will trickle down to the mainstream audience?
100%, yeah. We're already actively putting it into mainstream fitness, and the uptake's been good. I've had just getting some feedback from people who are working actively with clients. People are data driven nowadays. Most people have a fitness watch that tells them, might be on a simplistic level, that's heart rate or calories or how well you've slept. We are inquisitive about data. So why would we not want to know a little bit more about when we're lifting? You know, if I'm tired and I haven't lifted and everything feels a lot heavier, well, why is that? Well, it's nice and simple. You're lifting it slower, but actually you're still within this range where we want you. So it just gives people a little bit more evidence-based approach. It's for us to simplify it. I think that's probably the first barrier that we've seen in fitness.
And I was training in a third space a couple of months ago, and there's a reason I mentioned third space, and we'll get onto that. But with the pin-loaded machines, in there it was making sure my rep range and timing was correct. So it kind of had like an up and down curve on the monitor, and as I pushed it, the little circle went up and down. So it was making sure that I was doing the rep correctly, but in the right amount of time, rather than just smashing it as quickly as possible.
Exactly that.
So you think it might be similar to that, but with free weights potentially? There'll be some sort of technology that's integrated to make sure that reps are being performed correctly.
100%. I don't think you're ever going to detract entirely from a PT or a coach being there. That's not just from the personal approach, but you know, what is a good rep? A good rep to me will be a different good rep to you based on our sort of assessment, if you like, and our injuries and whatnot. But yeah, elite sport have been using it, and it's more about training more efficiently. Whole training now to someone is about efficient. You look at the classes that people are running, you look at the franchises, it's all in 9 rounds or F45 quick, in and out. Well, if we can be more efficient with our training in the free weights room, and it can be either self-led, so we understand it, I think that's really powerful. So an example would be a camera system that measures barbell velocity, and this is where we have to simplify it, but if it flashes up green, you're training power. If it flashes up red, you're training strength. People react to that. We know that from my zone. People know about color schemes. People don't necessarily know that they're in the anaerobic zone, but they know they're in the red zone, right? So we've got to simplify it as a supplier, and that's what we're doing at the moment. I truly believe that's where it is, that people will go in, they'll lift, they'll understand that green means they're training a certain adaptation and red means they're training a certain adaptation, and they'll understand that it's not a bad thing to have good days and bad days. You're going to be tired on some days, and you're going to be stressed on other days, but it's making sure that you're still getting that adaptation when you're tired or when you're feeling good. That's where I believe it will go. How far we are behind that, I don't know. But in the last 24 months, I can openly say that we've put it into quite a few commercial gyms who are using it on a one-to-one basis at the moment, not on the gym floor.
So you've seen it trend within athletes, and now it starts coming to some commercial, and you potentially see that trickling down even further to the independents and being used at day to day.
100%. Yeah,
Nice.
I think eventually it'll end up in your watch is where it'll end up. So as well as your heart rate and stuff, and your whoop and your sleep and everything like that, you'll see. Oh, today I was in the power zone. And
I see.
power.
And let's say I walk into a certain gym. That gym has a certain app, depending on the equipment they buy, that connects with it all, and it can see it all together. I've got
That's where it'll be. Yeah.
It'd be cool to get a couple of case studies from you, and the first one can be a cool kind of flex in terms of, I mentioned third space. So it'd be cool because you have kitted out a lot of the third space gyms and are continuing to do so. And then it'd be good to get another case study of maybe more of an independent, smaller facility operator to give a bit more context to the majority of clients that we have here at FMA. So let's start with third space. So you guys are the main equipment provider for them there?
Well, so third space are very much a best in class. So they use a range of suppliers who will be best in class in various sections. So in cardio, it'll be a supplier. In pin loaded, it'll be a supplier which isn't us. So we are now, recently, their chosen supplier for rigs, racks, storage solutions. For anyone who's been to Third Space Moorgate, you'll see the Circle Combat Rail that we did, which was one of one. So that's something we're very proud of as well. But yeah, it's a relationship that we've been supplying them stuff for probably maybe 3 or 4 years, but the last 2 years we're now their go-to supplier. If you're going to ask why and why that may be, the whole personalization thing is a big one. You'll notice they have their brands sort of on point. It's a very strong brand, Third Space. People want to be associated with it. If you're in London, you train at a Third Space, it's you're doing okay. But the other thing is, I don't think they were truly open to or had an idea of what the capacity was in terms of that bespoke nature. So something you'll see a lot at their new site that's due to open in a few months' time is a lot of bespoke stuff in there, cable wraparound storage systems, bespoke rigs, bespoke storage solutions. And again, being in London, they needed to maximise that floor space. Yes, their gyms are huge, but still they're paying a premium for it. So yeah, it's a partnership that we're really proud of, and yeah, always developing.
Nice. And can you give me another case study, maybe a smaller setup that you've worked with and just help them get out and find all their needs? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if we stick within London for now, but Matt Roberts is another one which you've probably heard of, but the reason I picked that one is that's more boutique one-to-one personal training.
Yeah.
So it was actually my colleague Tom who did that one, but I understand about it. And in there, it's very much still very high-end, top high-end of the market, if you like. So the equipment still has to feel and look premium. Ultimately, in terms of their design, yeah, they're very much going for like a rig system that might be like a showpiece or a centerpiece. Yeah, turf in there. They'll have sort of certain bits of equipment. It's very much like a one-to-one PT model. So yeah, I think when it comes to that, it's again, it was just about fact finding and what is it that their clients want? What is it that they what sort of sessions are they looking to run with them? What is their training philosophy? And how can we design a facility around that? So yeah.
Awesome. And we'll go ahead and start to wrap things up. But for anyone that is new to FMA, you will have received one of these inside your welcome box. If you haven't got one of these but would like one, just email us and we'll either send you a code or send this over to you so you can get this as well. But there's also another offer for all FMA clients exclusively. Can we just run through what that is exactly?
Yeah, so there's 15% discount. It's FMA 15, so that'll be usable on the Ray Strength website. So yeah, put that in at Lifestyle discount code in your checkout.
And that's at the checkout. So I go and buy everything or go select everything at checkout, FMA 15, and it's 15% off.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. And we'll put a button below this video, which will just take you straight to the website. So you can go click and just find out more, and then also select any products that you want and get that 15% discount. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming down to the studio. It's been good to talk all things equipment with you. And again, click that button down below if you want to find out more and get that discount.